This is week 5 of class, and again, I'm Kelly, and this is Cindy and Doug with me here tonight, and we're going to do lots of fun things tonight, but we're going to be talking about conflict resolution. So, if you did you see let's get some thumbs up. Did you see the pre-video, which of course was Cindy and Doug? Was this the one where they were on vacation at the beach? No, it wasn't. Okay. I thought that was. Well, anyway, so that was really great. You learned about the change process, and we'll do the conflict resolution. That's fun. So change process, you got a really good, Cindy and Doug did such a great job explaining that. And it really helps, my bottom line when I review that is always just take it to God first. Be willing to use self-control. Remember last week we talked about self-control is a fruit of the Spirit, and it will serve you so well. You're going to learn, you're going to be like, you're going to mess up, and you're going to have to, like we talked about last week, you're going to have to say you're sorry. You're going to have to ask God for his help, ask your partner for their help, and you'll grow. But it won't, but the thing is taking it to God first helps to save us from some of those much longer conflicts. Let me just take this opportunity to say that if a conflict is going on longer than, like, I would say, depending on who you are, 30 to 40 minutes, it's time for a break. Maybe it's a 15-minute break, maybe it's an hour break, maybe it's a day break. But when you keep going, when someone says, no, we are not leaving here until we finish this, it's likely not going to go well or end well. And that's just my opinion. That's my, counsel as a pastor and someone who's been married for 28 years, Cindy and Doug, way far past that. But, it's just wisdom to say, I don't think I'm doing this well. I think I need a break. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you just, maybe it's like, this person is crazy. I need to take a break so I don't say something I'm going to regret. Either way, I just highly recommend that in the change process, being able to take it to God and wait and ask for him to give you more to bring to the table.
Hey, Kelly.
Yes.
I felt like we've had a conversation that went that long, and I realized that I was starting to forget what I was saying. So I can understand, like, you make so many points, and then it's like you forget what the point was, and then on top of that point. So I appreciate that, because I can understand how that can help with saying, okay, let's take a break and then come back to it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, reset. I always tell folks later on, you're going to remember the argument, like what happened and how you felt, but you're not going to remember what it was about, which tells you how important the things we argue about can be, And of course, there are very important things that we have conflicts about that we do need to make sure and come back to. Sometimes it's just been a rough day. And so we did you guys talk about don't let the sun go down on your anger in your video? I don't think that is in the video.
I don't think we talked about that, no.
There's a scripture that says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. It's in context, and Christians love to pull things out of context all the time. And what I just want you to think about is that, that if it means you can have peace between you, you may still be mad, but I think what the point is to say, yes, we don't agree on this yet, but I love you and I'm not going anywhere. That you can go to bed with. You can take a break from something that you're really offended by or hurt by, upset about, and you can try and sleep. Did you hear that? Because sometimes it's hard, and you can come back to it. So when we ask that question actually in our inventory that some of you have taken, do you argue until, you're exhausted? And when folks say yes on that, we really kind of hone in on that and try and help. It's just not good. So.
Well, Kelly, we would agree with you. That's one thing that Doug and I have always decided, that there is never someone sleeping in another bedroom. Even if our conflict has not been resolved. We decided, to maybe, pick it back up again the following day when we were a little bit more rested. But because we just found in our relationship, when we're tired, we never really get to the proper place that we need to be. So we go to bed, but we're always in the same bed. There may not be any cuddling that night or any hand holding that night, but we're in the same bed. And there's like, I love you and a kiss goodnight, but that's but I like what you said,
Well, this is a great lead in to the first part of the class. So let's see. Oh, I've got some people waiting. See, I'm just such a bad administrator.
Hey, Kelly.
Yes.
While you're letting them in, starting with us, there's very few couples that we've coached and mentored where they haven't had to work on their conflict resolution. So I want to give you guys a pass to realize that, conflict is not a bad thing. It's really how you resolve it. If you think you're going to go into a relationship and have no conflict, then I think you better give some thought to that. So I just want to give you guys a pass to understand most people will have conflict. The question is, how can you resolve it? And honestly, you can resolve it and end up stronger in your relationship with each other.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll give you some ideas on that.
Yes. Okay. Let me see where we're going here. This is going to be fun. I'm going to share, I don't often do this, or maybe I said that and I do, but I'm going to share some slides just to show you. This is kind of fun. Just a quick funny. There are two kinds of people. The ones that pack 6 days before a trip, and the ones that wake up day of and realize they need to do a load of, and they marry each other. So often. This is just the beginning. And so what I want to do is, there we go. Talk about conflict resolution styles. So we have identified just 5 conflict resolution styles. And when you're hearing this, you might think, oh, that's mine or that's mine, but hold on to that, because once I get done just describing them briefly, we're going to have you guys take some time and talk about your family of origin and your conflict resolution style. So often the style, the way we come at or think about conflict comes from our family of origin, whether it was done well or just okay or really poorly. That's usually where we start. And then sometimes if we've had multiple relationships or other relationships before the one that we're in, some of it might have come from things that happened in those relationships. And I would say, for instance, a trust wound might have come from a past relationship, not from your family of origin. So you get to figure that out tonight. You actually may employ more than one, depending on the issue. Some folks have one way when they talk about finances and another about parenting. And I'll give you an example of that in a minute. So here we go. Here are the conflict resolution styles. Let's see. Whoops. Sorry, guys. I'm going to use this. There we go. So you can see that on this, we call it the family map. We have independence on the left and closeness across the bottom. And here are our 5 types of conflict resolution styles. So they are competing, collaborating, compromising, accommodating, and avoiding or avoidance. And in your manual, you have some pretty good longer definitions of this. Like I said, I'm just going to touch on it. But independence means also like you like your space. You're flexible. You're very flexible. Don't need a lot of together time. And then across the bottom, there's closeness, or the person that came up with this called stickiness, where you like when things are when there's a struggle or when you're going through something, anything big, good or bad, you want to be close. Your family came together when things got hard. Independent families usually let each other figure their own stuff out. And there was less really tight connection. So as you might imagine, a combination of these two is probably the best way to be. Neither all the way up here in the competing or independent corner, nor down here in the avoidance and closeness corner. When two people get together and they have opposite experiences, like one has a very independent family of origin, the other has closeness, they can try and pull one another into their way of doing it. So tonight, what I would say example is to help us to see that there's not a right and a wrong way. And my way may not be my husband's way, but if we can move toward one another, that's what the best way to go is. And sometimes we're going to talk about deferring to one another later. Sometimes we do. We do what the other person wants to, even though it's not our way, because we can see how it will help in that instance increase our conflict resolution satisfaction. Oh, that's a pretty clinical term, but we'll be happier if we do. But you really need to learn what goes on inside of you so that when it happens, you don't get pulled into that, or, or like I call it like down the chute down the mountain, like you get into this conflict and all of a sudden you're flying down into the path you normally go, the well-worn path, the deeply embedded behavior, whether that's denial or defensiveness. Defensiveness is a big one. We've talked about that a couple of weeks ago, or last week maybe. So what we have on this map is showing that folks who have an avoidance style or accommodating. Avoidance is if we disagree, our relationship is going to suffer. You're going to leave the relationship. I might lose it, so I want to avoid conflict at all costs. Also, in this one, often, I don't want to say it's often the man, because it really is not. There's no generalities here. However, men who avoid are afraid of hurting the woman often. They've hurt them in the past, or they saw their mom hurt, or their sisters, or whatever, and they just think, I don't ever want to hurt her. And so they avoid for that reason. Women might avoid because of they're afraid of anger or intensity. So depending on where you are, accommodating means, it often means whatever you want to do is fine with me. And often accommodators keep score. And they say, why do we always, after a while, they'll say, why do we always do what you want to do? But it's because they don't want any conflict. So they just say, whatever you want, whatever you want. Compromising is a little bit different. They say, it's okay with me either way. Or they might even say, you got your way last time, this is my turn. So there's a little, there's trying to keep everything fair. Everything should be equal. And again, not bad, but it kind of lands you down here if the person you're in relationship with is in another corner. Competing is where it's very important to that person. Now, I want to say what we mean by this is that they want the conflict to be resolved so they can move on. Sometimes it's so that they can win. So if you know that's you, I think that loves to win, that really has to win, like they cannot not win, then it would be really good for you to do some work in that area and be able to say so. Just like if you're afraid of losing the relationship through a conflict, you acknowledge that. So it's out on the table and you get to try and move past that really strongly embedded way of doing things. And as you can see, I left the one in the middle for last. Collaborating, it is a style all on its own. It means I win, you win. Somebody who really wants to find the best way for everyone, so everyone will be happy. It's not always possible, honestly. It's often we need to defer to one another. But it is really nice if a competing person who's up in this corner and an avoidant or accommodating person down in this corner, and maybe these two are together, can come together and meet in the middle somehow. And what we call this is moving toward one another rather than holding, your digging your heels in the ground, saying, I'm not going to do that. Okay. The opposite of collaborating would be the person down here saying, if like I need closeness and I need us to do things together 3 times a week, and I really want us to read a book together, and I want us to go to Bible study together, and I want to be with my family every weekend, like if they're demanding that, they're asking this person that has a different style to come down there, and that's usually not tenable. And vice versa. If someone really wants lots of free time, then they want this person who wants to be close, they want them to give them all the space. So again, these are just generalities. We're not putting you in a box. We're saying, which one do you resonate the most with? And how can this, how can you share with one another what to do? I'm not going to, let's see what I can do this. Can I get everybody up there? I was going to say, do I have any questions? Oh yeah, I can get that up there. Anybody have a question about this or comment before we move on? I did that good a job? Okay. All right. I will stop sharing. By the way, you have this in your participants guide. Oh yeah, I missed my red arrow slide. Oh, well, I'm not sharing anymore. There you go.
Kelly, I have a question.
Yes.
So no, typically, I guess I've been taught per se that compromise, in the scope of relationship is a good thing. Are you just saying that it can be, because that was the closest one to collaborating.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying that the difference between collaborating and compromise is motive, or are you saying something else?
It's motive. All of them have motive in them. I would say that compromising is, like you said, the closest. It just has that one part of it that says it always has to be fair.
Compromise.
It's very close to collaborating, which says win-win. But how we describe collaborating is you meet in the middle. You each come toward, or you come toward one another. You may not be in the middle. It may be sometimes a little more there. But I would say the reason that I've already forgotten. Compromising would not be the same as collaborating is because if it has to be fair all the time, someone's going to be disappointed. It just doesn't work that way. So I don't think it's bad to be compromising, because that's deferring. That's good to defer if you can. It's just not the ideal if you get stuck in it. Does that help?
Yes. Stuck is a good way I like that.
Okay.
I get
Yeah.
Can I ask
The
a
what I
clarifying?
think of, when I think of that is in compromising, I might be compromising individually. Collaborating is coming together, where the two of you are coming together. Think about it that way. They're close, but the two of you are coming together and working together to solve a conflict.
Mm. Yeah, it's not just one person's way.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Did you have a question, Lydia?
I was just gonna clarify, so I was kind of thinking it, and maybe this is like my teacher brain with compromising. It's like compromising, nobody wins, actually. It's a lose-lose because actually no one gets what was actually needed out of that conflict because they both have to give something up. Whereas like collaborating, both of them do get something that they need out of it. So it's almost like
Yeah.
it's the opposite, but with the same, you still work together to do it, but like neither of you are actually getting,
That's good insight.
I don't know. Am I understanding that right? Or I don't
I
know.
think that's great.
That's a really good insight.
That's great. Yeah.
That helps. Yes, yes. Okay. But did someone else start to say something? It's hard to watch all these little boxes at the same time. Okay. I'm going to turn this over to Cindy and Doug now, and they are going to give you your little assignment to do.
All right. So we've looked at that family map. And as Kelly said, some of it might have really resonated with you very quickly, what you are personally. And then oftentimes that is a product of your family of origins. So we want to just kind of start you on that journey of identifying these things. So in your participants guide, I am page 90, I believe it is. We're just going to start you on the first couple questions. You're going to have maybe the next 7-8 minutes to just start on this. And then the final couple questions you can do for homework. So the first question is, where does your conflict resolution style, where does yours fall on the map? And how does this reflect your family of origin? Right? And maybe even, go in there, why do you think this is your conflict resolution style? What makes you think that you're that, you're that, that part of the quadrant? Then there's a second question. Where does your fiance's conflict resolution style fall on the map? And then are they the same? So you can kind of move down to question 3. Are they the same? And did your families of origins, their conflict resolution style, were they different? So let's take the next 7 minutes and you guys write that down, or you can print this off later, but write it on a scrap piece of paper right now. And we're just going to take the next 8 minutes to have you do that worksheet.
Kelly, can you share the map real quick? Just put it up for us, please. It's not in the book. Is it the U in the book? Well, you're on mute.
Coming right up.
Okay.
I thought it was in the book. I'll double check and find it for you if it is, but I'll share it. That's a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Is that good? Got a 1-minute warning yet, Cindy?
Yep, everybody finish up.
This is opportunity.
All right, everybody. Well, the good news is that hopefully you got some great discussions started, and you can keep doing that for your homework. One part of really being successful in resolving conflict is active listening. So we want to take the next few minutes and talk to you about what active listening is. And as we walk through it, it seems like it can be really easy, but sometimes it can be really hard to be an active listener when you're in, the heat of something you're very passionate about. So Doug's going to get us started about active listening.
Yeah, I'd like you to think about it in a little different context, that listening is a form of loving. And listening is a gift of really being there to try to receive the other person. And we found that words will tether us together. And in many ways, those words can become one of the cords between us in our relationship. And here's a quote that was in a book that really struck us. And it said, "The gift of presence is a rare and beautiful gift, to come unguarded, to be undistracted, and be fully present, fully engaged with whomever we're with at that moment. And when we offer our unguarded presence, we live like Jesus." So that's a really good way to go into the topic of listening. And Cindy's going to cover a couple questions to ponder.
Right. So as you're thinking about how you do listen to one another, I'm going to give you 4 statements, and I just want you to think to yourself whether if this is a strength you have or whether this might be a weakness that you have. So the first statement is, you refrain from finishing your spouse's or partner's sentences.
We're not asking for a show of hands on this either.
It's just yourself. The second statement is, you ask for clarification when you don't understand what your partner means. Are you strong or weak in this statement? And that is, you don't feel the need to prove yourself as wise, helpful, or right. And the final statement is, rather than planning your responses, you try to set those aside in your head and focus on what's being said. So active listening are all those things and more. So in your participants guide, we're going to go through 3 areas of active listening to help you build this skill, this tool that you have in hearing one another well. Active listening really creates a safe place for you as a couple to express your frustrations, your concerns, and the change that you're asking for. There are 3 areas: attend, restate, and respond. Why don't you get us started with?
Yeah, let's start with attend. One of the things that's important is to be able to have the proper environment. So you don't have the television on. We're able to look at each other and have eye contact with each other. I mean, sometimes in order to get this done, Cindy and I had to go to dinner to be able to just have a quiet household where we could actually have a conversation and we could look at each other and go, "How are you doing?" And then be quiet and then just listen to what that other person has to say. It's putting down, I know it's hard, but when I want to talk to her, if she has the phone in her hand, I won't even try to have a conversation because I know that she's on the phone, and I need to have that phone down, and I need to have her looking at me to feel like she's really listening to me. And it goes with me as well. So it's not just her.
Well, it's not just the phone too. I mean, I am the queen of multitasking. Anybody else out there? I'm trying to do two things at one time. So, Doug's trying to talk to me and I'm unloading the dishwasher. I'm like, honey, talk to me. I'm listening. I can do two things at one time, but that's not really showing him quality listening. So I have to just put that down and just be still and really try to focus on what he's telling me.
The other thing I found that's important in the attending portion is our body language. So we're not sitting there going like this, because this means I'm not listening to you. Here's another one. I got to take my glasses off when I'm talking to her. Not that this would ever happen.
Yeah.
Anybody ever
Well,
do that?
I confessed that in the pre-video.
Yeah.
About my rolling eyes,
If we
when he
roll our
says
eyes.
something that I think is ridiculous, I'm like, oh, geez, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
that does not bode well. That's not good
But-
for resolving conflict.
The thing that she said, when she said creating a safe space to express frustrations and concern, the words I heard there were safe space and express. We need to have an opportunity to truly talk about our feelings and to make really sure that we're giving that other person our full undivided attention.
Mhm. Absolutely. So the first one is to be attentive to that other person. The second part of active listening is to restate. Oftentimes, we hear things through the filters that we have from our life and from our experiences. And sometimes when we hear things, we don't hear them the way they're intended. So restating is a really wonderful tool to use to be able to mirror back what you heard. And that gives your partner an opportunity to clarify if you didn't understand it correctly. So this is where, you do a lot of I statements, not you statements, I statements. So it would be something like, Doug, I hear you saying, what I hear you saying is that when I am unloading the dishwasher and you're trying to talk to me, that makes you feel undervalued and that I'm not really caring about what you want to share with me. Is that what you said? And then that would be Doug, would say, yes, that's what I'm thinking, or not quite. And then you would try again, and then you would reflect back that. That way there is really less chance of misunderstandings when you really can ask questions. And think about it, when your partner asks you more questions, you really feel like, okay, they really want to know how I'm feeling. They're really trying to get in tune with what I am trying to communicate.
Here's the scary one. So if I were to have to say to her, so what I hear you saying is you want me to be more romantic like I was when we were dating. And then she would respond to that. So that one I understood clearly.
Yeah, so that was.
But the thing that she said that's important is don't use the word. When she says to me, you do this and you always do that, I get defensive. And so we'll try to use the words we, or we'll try to describe the situation and not look specifically at the person and say you.
Well, not you, but I, because you're speaking for yourself. I feel this, right? Because that's how you feel. You can't be denied how you feel.
And when you're restating, this is not a time where you try to put forth your defense,
Mhm.
which we've all done that at times.
Right. Because restating is hard because I've been guilty of this where I'm formulating my response when I'm supposed to be reflecting back what Doug is saying to me. I'm worrying about what I'm going to say, prove myself right, or whatever I want my own way, or whatever it might be, instead of just putting myself aside and really trying to hear Doug's heart and what he's trying to communicate to me. So then we've got attending, restating, and now responding.
Responding, one of the most important points in responding is don't react. And we need to be thoughtful in our responses. We need to be loving in our responses. Words are very, very powerful. And it's awful hard to take back words once we say something. And I joke that in my business, I'm in sales. And one of the things that I use, it's an acronym called LAIR, LAER. And it stands for listen, acknowledge, explore, and respond. But when I'm in business, what I usually do is I don't listen, I don't acknowledge, and then I explode. And don't we sometimes do that? You're laughing. Don't we sometimes do that, in our relationship with the person that we love the most? Do we really sit down and look at them and listen to them? And then we acknowledge by saying, I could understand, honey, how you could feel that way, that, you put the kids to bed. You put the kids to bed every night this week and you'd like a break. Then you explore a little bit and then you respond. So LAIR is something that I've used in the past. Go ahead.
Well, another thing too, that I've always had is you don't want to react, you want to respond. And there's a difference. So you need to be thoughtful. And in James, it talks about how the tongue is the sword that can just pierce hearts. And so, it's so important, our words. And like Kelly said too, the self-control, the fruits of the spirit, humility and self-control is in there as well. And so it's important that we're mindful of what we're saying. And a lot of times that we need to invite God into that, because sometimes we work off our emotions and we're reacting instead of maybe taking a deep breath or two and trying to respond instead. Another thing that how Doug and I kind of did this, he kind of alluded to it. There was a time that I really wanted some change, and we had three young kids at home, and I just felt like, gosh, I kind of want to be romanced a little bit. And so I, went to Doug and I just said, I need some change. And he was receptive.
No, I'm not sure I was at first though.
Okay.
Because my first comment, I reacted and I said, well, you knew when we got married, I wasn't very romantic. Okay, that I didn't go through the process. I didn't go through, restating and acknowledging and everything. But I did say that at one point.
Yes, you did. And it didn't happen overnight. But what he also asked, and we're going to get into this in a little bit, is he asked me some good questions because he was listening to my heart. And he said, what does that look like for you? Like, give me some ideas. Because he was not raised, that was not modeled for him. And so he's like, he didn't really know what that looked like. What does that look like to you? And so I had to give him very specific examples of what that looked like. They weren't costly.
Write me a letter.
Yeah, just little things. I don't need a bouquet of flowers. Just stop and get me one. It's just the thought. And so this, as I said, did not happen overnight, but we continued this conversation, and I had to be very supportive and encouraging of him when he did step out, saying, wow, that made me feel so special. And it's doing the next right thing, the next right step for one another, and trying to make that change. It doesn't always happen overnight, but I will tell you that he's a lot more romantic now than he was years ago when I brought this up. So I think we've moved in that area because we both have been attentive to one another. We've restated things to one another so we fully understood, and we were able to respond and give ideas to one another on what that looked like. Are there any questions on active listening? In your participants guide there, it's on page 85. There's some wonderful ways when you are in conflict, some really good tips. This might even be really good to print off and literally have taped inside a cabinet. So when you hit conflict, you just take it off there. All right, these are what we need to follow. So we can show each other great value. you want to face some of these things Doug mentioned, eye contact, minimize distractions. Do not interrupt. Oh my goodness, that was my thing. So Doug and I are both in sales, so we're very verbal people, and so it was very easy for me to interrupt because a lot of times maybe I didn't like what he was saying, or I didn't think it was true. I'm like, well, let me, and I was trying to move forward my agenda.
Because we were both competing at that time.
Mm-hmm. So, it was one of those things where we just had to we had to step back and not interrupt. And so
and you do great with that now.
I'm doing better, not perfect, but better. Yeah, and just think of others as, you treat others the way you would want your partner to treat you. So any questions on active listening?
I just would like to see a show of hands of anyone who's had a course in this or has read a book or heard something. Who's familiar with this type of communication? A few. Okay, very good. Yeah, I've actually.
Workplaces are nowadays doing that a lot, or at least a couple of years ago, that was a very popular thing, conflict resolution.
What was? In your workplace?
Yeah, I felt like a lot of workplaces started doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In our,
Meeting.
when I'm a scoutmaster, and I teach conflict resolution and communication skills and styles for training that we give to adult volunteers, and like learn to listen to learn, managing difficult conversations, all different kinds of stuff. And I was training in that this past summer and teaching it. So yeah, it's really cool. When Kelly, when you asked that question, I really thought like the Boy Scouts of America. I'm all about that.
That's great.
I thought for a second, Jerry, you were going to say you teach the boys.
Well, yeah, it's other adult leaders. Yeah, because every unit deserves a trained leader. That's kind of our motto. So.
Well, that's great. I think it would be great to teach children how to do that. I always say, why don't they have this in school?
Yeah.
This is all new to me.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Wait. You gotta unmute Seth. Wait, no, it's Lydia, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I'm not a teacher. No way.
I remembered that after I said it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know what to say about it. It's just interesting, fifth grade, they're at that key, like selfish, they revert, their pubescent mind reverts back to being a 2-year-old. And so everything is me. So then teaching the active listening part where, you're putting somebody else even like at an equal as you. Let's not even say below above you. Let's just try equal for a minute. It's interesting.
But you've got some good stories. That's really neat.
I don't know if I'd call them good. They're scary.
Yeah.
I have stories. Yeah.
Hey. All right. Well, let's see. Looks like we're doing really good on time. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to model a conflict resolution worksheet. And I just want to give a little bit of intro to this. Actually, Doug and Cindy are going to. And Jerry and Kendra have offered to do it with them, which is very generous. I think we would have a lot of couples in this class that would want to. So, but we had to pick just one. And so in our coaching program that we offer through this church, we meet with a couple like Cindy and Doug. Of course, there's no one like Cindy and Doug, but when you meet with a coach couple, you've taken an inventory, and in this inventory, there are worksheets. The focus of the inventory is to identify strengths in your relationship and improvement needed. So there is no we're not saying that someone is right or wrong. All it's saying is you both agree on these items, these areas of relationship, and that's a strength. And not only are we identifying the strength, but we're asking you to tell each other what it is that you do well. So if I say that my husband is a good listener, you may remember that he said I wasn't, but I said he was. And so then the thing that it encourages me to do, these worksheets and the inventory, is to tell him what I like about the way he listens to me. And I might say, you always hear me all the way out. You don't jump in, you don't interrupt, something like that. It really means a lot to me that you do that. But you see you're sharing with the other person what hits the mark for you. This really is important to you because they may not know. They may just think, oh, that's just something I do. It doesn't really mean anything. But when you let the other person know, this is what I love. When you put your hand on my back or my shoulder and you pray for me, I feel God's presence so much. That's just a wonderful thing. They might not know if you didn't tell them. So the strength is really important. And we haven't really done much of that in the class this time. And tonight we're going to focus on the improvement needed because this is conflict resolution class. And so I just want you to realize that while we're focusing on conflict, it's because folks say this is what they want to know about. But it's just as important to highlight the good things. As a matter of fact, Doug and Cindy have something they do called, help me you guys.
The most endearing quality?
Yes. Did you tell about that in Covenant? We'll say it again. It's good to repeat.
Well, in order for Doug and I to kind of continue appreciating one another, we learned this when we were engaged, is to have daily to tell one another what your most endearing quality is for the day. We don't do it every day, but especially we find that if we are really sensing that there's a disconnect between us, and a lot of times we find our conflict happens when we are not heart connected. Mm-hmm. And so what we do with that is called most endearing quality. And so we just tell each other one thing that we appreciate about that person for that day. Doesn't have to be anything huge. It could just be, I just so appreciate you stopping and, doing that extra errand for me today and taking something off my plate, but it's just a way to really appreciate one another.
Yeah, so good. So some of you have already taken the inventory, some of you haven't, and you only take that if you decide you want to come in meet with me and look into doing the coaching program. There's no commitment to it at all, but that's when you would get it. What I also want to tell you is that if that's not something that's on your plate that you really aren't thinking you want to do, the inventory is available to you to work on your own. So I can give you, if you're interested in that, just let me know and I can give you the website and you can go on there, purchase the inventory and do some work on the things that you want to work on. But we use it in our coaching program and the coaches help you. And so that's what we're going to model tonight. We're going to model Cindy and Doug helping Jerry and Kendra to talk through something that they've identified through the inventory. And we'll see how it goes. We don't know, they haven't practiced, they haven't rehearsed. We're just going to let you guys see how it goes. And so also we'll have time afterward for you to ask questions. Anything you notice, anything you want to add, we'll all unmute and clap there, Kendra.
I was going to say.
One more thing, and then I'm going to let you go. So what has happened is one of them has identified that they need to improve. Actually, both of them said that one of them needs to improve. It's hard to be that person in front of this class. but remember what we're saying is not that it's that you're wrong. It's that we want to both understand, we want to know how we can improve. So it's different to say, I'm wrong and I have to do it your way. Remember my example about listening. When Larry said that I wasn't a good listener, I could have said, he's nuts. Everybody says what a good listener. Everybody at work tells me I'm such a good listener. All my friends, why does he think I'm, he says, so I could say that, or I could say, wonder why he thinks that. Like that would be, I don't understand why he would think that, but I should probably ask, which thankfully that's what I did. That was a good night for me. But that's what we're talking about here is that that if in this case it will be, I'm going to set it up, it will be Kendra has said that she needs to improve and Jerry has said that she needs to improve. And I'll also tell you guys, they both said in some ways, depending. And so so what that means is that maybe there are a few things and we want to talk about it. We just want to see if anything comes to the surface. But just remember, it is hard to be that one, and you're going to be great, Kendra. So, all right. Very good. Cindy and Doug, take it away. I'll be right here.
All righty, great. Yeah, thank you so much, Jerry and Kendra. This is so helpful, and this is a great plug for the coaching program, because it really helps other people come alongside you and really encourage you in your strengths, but also help you in these areas. And we all need them, no matter how long you've been married. We all need areas of improvement. So this is the question that, Kendra, we're going to have you ask Jerry, and that is, what do you want to be different about the way I make decisions when we don't agree with each other?
I think we need to say what the statement was first.
Is it up here? Is it up there?
Which was, I defer.
I don't have that on my thing.
We don't have that.
Oh, you have, well, okay.
Maybe.
Hold on, everybody. I've got it right here.
It'd be helpful if she could show the sheet.
Oh, wait a second. Was it on the participants guide?
No, it's not. Here, I have it. So I'll
Okay.
just read it. The statement was, I am willing to defer to my fiance when we cannot come to an agreement. And so Jerry and Kendra said that Kendra sometimes cannot defer when they can't come to an agreement. Is that right, you guys?
Yes.
Some depending, I think.
Depending.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the times when it does happen.
So again, let me read that question again. So Kendra, you're really asking Jerry, what does he want to be different about the way that you make decisions when you don't agree?
Do you want me to restate it and ask him?
Well, I mean, I can.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what I'd like you to do, since we're modeling this, is not look at the screen. I want you to look at each other.
Okay.
Okay, because this is about building your own relationship. So what you're really asking, Kendra, is you're asking Jerry, what does he want different about the way decisions are made when you don't agree?
Okay.
So ask him that question.
Okay. Jerry, what do you want to be different about the way I make decisions when we don't agree?
Well, if we're in a situation where we don't agree, that we can continue to kind of, talk about, what our issues would be, our kind of points of disagreement. And you do a really good job of like asking like clarifying questions and things like this. But when we do disagree, just to continue to, just ask the clarifying questions, and you do a really good job of that. And even like one time you felt that you were kind of being a little harsh or sharp when you were in response, because you're asking like a barrage of questions, and you were kind of joking about that. But I think that's okay. I'm comfortable because then you said, was I a little bit strong or harsh? Like, we talked about that. And I was like, I didn't really think so. I just thought of you as being really passionate about the questions that you were asking me. But you identified that particular issue, that it could have been, because remember we're talking, am I a Proverbs 31 woman? Or, am I being, reflectful and thoughtful? And I was like, yeah, I can see where you could think that you weren't, but I think that you were just fine in a sense. But the fact that you identified it was really important to me.
That's great. Thank you. So Kendra, one thing I saw that I really liked, you had great eye contact.
Yeah.
With Jerry. You really wanted to hear what he had to say. So that was a wonderful way of demonstrating active listening. You didn't interrupt him at all to, put your 2 cents in. You let him share what he had to say. So I do like that very, very, very much. So
Jerry, I just like your demeanor with her. I mean, you kept it, you smiled, you had eye contact with her, you brought a little bit of levity into it. You restated, you gave her some credit for some of the things that she had done. So you made it in a situation where I don't think she was going to feel, I hope you didn't feel defensive. I felt that you did it in a great way that she wouldn't feel defensive.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
That's great.
okay, so we're going to move on to the second question. Oh,
Do I
you
need
want her to do reflective?
Yes, the active listening. But the one thing that happened there, Jerry, is you did a great job, and yet you said a lot of things, and it's pretty impossible for Kendra to be able to tell you what you said.
No, I'm just joking.
So can you summarize, Jerry? Could you summarize in maybe 2 sentences so that Kendra can feel like she really knows what you said?
I know. I appreciate the fact that you were self-reflective about if you were being perhaps a little bit rude or short with me. Is that too short?
I think I heard something else. Well, I heard that, but
Yeah.
I think, are you saying that, you want me to continue to ask questions
Yes.
and also to be mindful of my tone and basically like my approach
Yes.
when we disagree
Yeah,
and how I respond.
absolutely.
Okay.
That's good.
I got the thumbs up from Cindy.
I'm getting so warm.
You're two brave people. You're 2 brave people.
Yes, tone is so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tone of voice can really indicate really where our heart is. Our face might be saying one thing and our heart's going somewhere else, but our tone of voice will always show what's really going on inside of us. So it's so important. Well, let's go on to the next question. So Kendra, you're going to ask Jerry, how can you make it better for him? Remember, think back. These are a couple of the questions we're talking about. These 2 questions. How do you want it to be different? And how can I make it better? These are pivotal questions that you will use in conflict resolution so you can collaborate and you can get to the other side of change. So, all right, Kendra, so you're going to ask Jerry, how can you make it better? And then he needs to give you 1 to 2 examples that are measurable, reasonable, and repeatable.
The SMART goals. No.
Right. Smart.
Yeah.
All right. So Jerry, so just based on what we've been talking about, how can I make it better for you when we disagree or when I disagree?
Well, it was an example we were talking about earlier when we were talking about letting me know when you get home, like, because we live, a couple hours away from each other. And, but I think you did a great job of kind of talking to me because I was a little bit short with you when I said, email or text me or email me when you get to the house. And then you called me a little bit about that. And I was like, I'm sorry, I could, be a little more gentler in my approach. And that's what, you're really good with that. And so what you could do better is kind of do what we're doing And like, if you detect me having kind of a sharp tone or something like that, just, feel comfortable in letting me know. And then I can reflect on that and try to change my, my attitude and my approach.
Okay, so
Jerry, I'm sorry, Jerry, how would you like her to notify you that, because you just gave her freedom to tell you that when your tone isn't quite right, to be able to kind of call you out on that, how should she do that you would be receptive of that?
Well, I mean, she could even use some of the language that we're learning in the class, like kind of like I heard you say.
Okay, look at her.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I heard you say, she would be saying this to me. I heard you say you don't like it when I don't text you or call you when I get home, but the tone with which you presented it was a little sharp. Could you perhaps, take a slightly more gentle approach? And she kind of said all that, but it was a little more succinct, and I kind of got the message. And I did, be a little more gentle. Like even last night when I was, on my way over, I was like, I'll be there in 2 minutes. I texted like the Google thing on the car, and then I texted again, I love you. Because I was thinking, well, I could be telling my colleague that, I'll be there in 2 minutes. And then as I remember you asked me, why did you say that you love me? And I shared with you, so I'm sharing with the rest of the class, what I shared with you, that I thought that I could be, more romantic or something, as opposed to giving you a business update on my location, So that was another thing.
Wow. All right. Wow.
So Jerry, I heard one thing. Is there a second thing, an example on how she can make it better for you that's measurable, reasonable, and repeatable?
well, I feel like so this is the thing. Like, I feel like he's talking more about like what he can do better, and I didn't necessarily feel like he told me what I could do better. Like, because he genuinely is just a really nice person, and like I don't think I heard you say like what I could do better.
We were talking about our conflict resolution styles, and I actually mentioned I could be a little accommodating. I don't think I'm avoiding. I don't think I go quite that far, but I tend to take a go along to get along kind of approach to things, and that I don't demand a lot of people, and that, honey, I don't really demand a lot of people. And so that could be potentially be a problem, especially if I'm holding like hidden resentments and things like this. Like, man, I wish you would just know what I'm thinking or whatever, because I'm so compromising and go along to get along and this and that, loosey-goosey. And I'm not holding you to account, really. And that wouldn't be fair to you. That wouldn't be fair to us, to the relationship. And so that's kind of the problem with me, Cindy, is that I can do that. So, in terms of corrective action, report, right? I tend not to want to say, oh, Kendra, could you do this better? Could you do that better? Could you do that better? That could be a problem for me, that I need to work on, Cindy. And I shared this with you. I hope I'm not surprising you with what I'm telling you, Kendra. That I should be a little more opinionated is not quite the right word, but more sensitive to my feelings or my response to what your action, and to be able to be a little more, hey, could you do this, do that? But generally I think you're doing a really great job. So I'm stretching here, Well,
Jerry, I think that is wonderful. But I agree with you. That might be a growth opportunity for you, because it's so hard when you're asking to defer or for change, if someone cannot be specific with you on what behavior they're wanting to change. And so I think that's so helpful when you can come up with, with specifics. So that might be, an area that you could work on, just saying, and sometimes that just means self-reflection. Like, I never thought about that. What do I need? Doug's asking, what do I need? He's like, well, what does that look like for me to be romantic for you? I mean, you're asking me to be more romantic. What does that look like? I'm like, what does that look like? So I had to be specific. I'm like, well, it looks like this or this or this or this. And Doug's like, okay, I can do that. But if I just said to him, I need you to be more romantic, he's just like, no clue.
Yeah.
Check out. I have no idea. So that's why these these two examples that you give to one another is really important because they're measurable. You know when you've gotten that step done, and someone can say, oh, he's really trying or she's really trying, making that next step. So you guys are great. All right, Kelly, do you want to do the third one or are we kind of running out of time?
Go ahead.
Okay.
We won't take long.
All right. So the third and final question, Jerry and Kendra, is Kendra, you want to ask Jerry, how can these changes enhance our relationship? So the things that I've just kind of talked about, how can these things enhance your relationship?
Okay, so I'll just go back to like what you said in the first response, as far as like, asking questions and also just being mindful or thoughtful of my tone and approach. So if I do this, like, how do you think that those things could enhance our relationship?
I think that'll enhance our relationship, sweetheart, because it'll not only make me more mindful that we took the course and that we're being intentional in our approach to one another, but it'll also give me a sense that you really do care about me. You're worried. I know. You're worried. About my opinion and my view. And you also know that sometimes I have difficulty expressing that. Like I try to just, again, go along to get along, that I won't even let you know that I'm feeling some kind of way about something. Because sometimes maybe I don't even know, but then I'll lash out in unpredictable ways. Like, Jerry, where'd that come from? And then I have to like do some self-reflection. So that's something I need to work on, but also I'll know this because, you care, that you're, asking the clarifying questions, and that, when you ask me sometimes, Jerry, how do you say it? Oh man, Jerry, how is your heart? And you say it just like that. And I'm like, that's awesome. I really appreciate when you do that, because I know you genuinely care about what's going on, and you're intentional about the words as opposed to how was your day or how are you feeling? Like, how is your heart? Like, yeah, how is my heart? And I gotta, sit and think, and then we can have a deeper, meaningful conversation about that.
Awesome.
Great. Guys, thank you so much. Yep. Go ahead, Kendra, go ahead. Be reflective, what you heard.
No, I was just, the main thing is I heard you say that if I do this, if I make effort to do these things, that like, you'll know that I care. That's what I heard.
Awesome.
Let's give them a round of applause with our hands
You guys are so great.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, and one thing I want to really applaud you for too is the physical touch that I saw between the two of you as you're talking about something that needs improvement. It's easy to be holding hands and being near, when things are going well. It's not so easy when you might be not, and you're asking for improvement. And so I just really love that, because oftentimes if Doug and I, are not on the same page, the last thing I want to do is hold his hand or be near him. But I find that when we do that, it kind of melts my defenses down a little bit, and it reminds me that we are on the same team. And sometimes it just, gets me back on track where I need to be. So I just wanted to just really affirm that in the two of you. It just being able to have that physical touch while you're discussing something that maybe isn't easy.
Great job, guys. I just wanted to tell a really quick little story of something that happened for my husband and I. I'm just thinking about those of us, you online here tonight that may not feel really great at this. Like not feeling really great at hearing someone else's feelings, repeat understanding and just engaging. Like we're not all super wired for this, and yet you can still do a good job. So my husband, once I had a really bad conflict with my dad, I was really upset. I was crying. My husband was sitting on the floor at my feet. I was sitting on the couch, and he was listening to me. And he just had his hand on my knee, and he was just listening to me. And I was crying, like, I don't know, maybe you girls don't do this, maybe you guys don't do this, but I was really crying, and I was telling him everything that I was feeling. And after about 5 minutes, I looked at him and I said, do you know what I mean? And he looked at me and he startled for a second. He said, no, but you're doing really good. Keep going. And I think I actually laughed when he did it because it was so sweet. Like he can't like track with me in my emotions, but he will listen. And he didn't need to say anything, right? Like he really didn't. But so just maybe remember that if you think, oh, no, I don't know if I can do this. Do what you can, appreciate for each other for what you can do, and grow, always grow. Almost out of time here. And I want to remind you of an earlier assignment that you had on page 47. So somebody take note. It's a really quick little worksheet on being sensitive to criticism. So being really sensitive to criticism can kill any attempts to resolve conflict. It can kill active listening, and it can kill appreciation. So just maybe if you think that's you, or if your partner says that's you, maybe, I don't know if you better go there, but if you sense that in one another, just do this little worksheet and ask God to help you there. Ask God to say, it's like reflecting. We confess to God, I want you to know me better than I know myself. Hear what's going on, what I can do. Okay, real quick little plug for that. Then we're going down to the homework for conflict resolution. Definitely read anything in the okay. Homework, read there. I'm sorry, I'm not on top of this. You've got the worksheet. You've got a worksheet in here that's like that's the whole thing. But Jerry and Kendra just did the end. So go with me to 86, page 86 in your guide. And it's about becoming silent when you're not understood. This is so common that at least one person in the relationship shuts down. Maybe it's the avoider or the accommodator, shuts down when somebody gets upset, closes up, and can't share. And so this is a great worksheet. It has lots of scripture in it and discussion questions. Take some time. You shouldn't take longer for something like this. You shouldn't take longer than 20 minutes. Just give it your attention. It is several pages long, so don't let that turn you off. And then you can finish your conflict resolution styles exercise that you started tonight if you didn't finish. Okay? So that is all for homework tonight. And I am going to ask Doug and Cindy to pray for us after all the work we did tonight.
And we're going to stay on. So if you guys have any questions,
yes.
We're going to stay on. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, Laura, just thank you. Thank you for this time. Thank you for these couples. Just thank you for their sharing. Thank you for their willingness, Lord, to hear your word. Your word is truth. And just bless them, Lord, with the ability to listen to each other attentively and to listen in a loving fashion. And we do pray, Lord, that when conflict comes, that the resolution of that conflict is embedded in you, embedded in your word. We pray they'll take it to you, Lord, first, before they get into any conflicting conversations. And we just pray for the peace of the Holy Spirit to be with them. And may they grow and may they learn from the opportunities that they'll have during potential conflicts. So we thank you for this night, for their open sharing, and for the love they have for each other.
Lord, we thank you for the gift of marriage. And I just ask that you would bind these couples to one another, that you would bind them to your word, and that you would continue to deepen the love that they have for one another, that you would deepen they're wanting to understand one another, to be able to be totally vulnerable and transparent with one another, that they feel fully known by their partner, Lord. And in the good times and in the valleys, Lord, that they would turn towards you in all things for all wisdom. And we just wait in great expectation of how you are going to bind each couple together. And we just pray this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. All right, thanks, everybody.
Have a great weekend, guys. Enjoy the weather. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Thanks, Doug and Cindy. Thank you for being with us
You're
again.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love it.